The Career Competitor Podcast is brought to you by Tall Slim Tees. Guys, as someone that's always been frustrated by the way his shirts fit, either a slim fit that rides up my back or a shirt that's long enough that fits more like a poncho, I love my Tall Slim Tees as they're exactly what they claim to be, a shirt that will fit a tall, slim guy. Personally, I'm still going with my V-necks in these last remaining warmer days, but I've got a couple of longer sleeve options on standby with fall right around the corner. Made from great material that won't shrink or wrinkle in the wash, I cannot recommend Tall Slim Tees enough. And if my recommendation wasn't enough, head to tallslimtees.com now and enter promo code KOREA10 at checkout. That's the word Korea and the number 10, and you can enjoy 10% off your purchase. With 22 great colors to choose from across a wide variety of styles, guys, I'm telling you, head to tallslimtees.com today, enter promo code KOREA10 at checkout, and enjoy a shirt that fits you the way it's supposed to. Let's get to the show.
Really, that's all I can do right now is learn what I don't know, find the people that are doing the job that you eventually want, and just picking their brain.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Career Competitor with me, Steve Meller, and as a member of the CG Sports Network, this is the show that seeks to light the competitive fire within you in order to succeed within your career. We have a slightly different spin on the show today as I welcome in a current professional athlete who is at a crossroads within their life as they try to decide between remaining with their sport or pursuing a career outside of it. But before I introduce our guest for today, I want to encourage you all to head to careercompetitor.com, where you can find all our episodes, information on the show, and also all of our social media outlets where you can follow us. We have some terrific shows planned for the coming weeks ahead, but while you're at the webpage, feel free to reach out to me directly through my contact page, especially if you think you or someone you know would be a great candidate for the show. Now to our guest, and I recently had the fortune of sitting down with minor league baseball player Jeremy Randolph, who in 2019 fulfilled a lifelong dream to be drafted as professional baseball player with the St. Louis Cardinals. Like so many before him, Jeremy was immediately sent to develop his trade down in the minor leagues, but unbeknownst to him and so many other athletes across all sports, the chaos of 2020 was going to bring a difficult situation where resources would be drastically pulled from sports, in particular those at lower levels of the professional game. Jeremy now finds himself in a difficult situation regarding whether he should keep developing as a baseball player for a minor league season that may or may not happen in 2021, or start getting more serious about the conversations he is having with those around him about opportunities to start his career away from the game. So here he is in his mid-20s with a decision to make, and he was kind enough to come on to Career Competitor and talk all of this through with me. This opportunity to talk through a career crossroads with someone is something that here on the show we embrace and have plans to do more of in the future to help those of you listening that may be going through something similar. But I believe that within our discussion there will be lessons for even those of you that are well on your way to a successful career. And I will dissect our discussion in my keys to success at the end of the episode to make sure you all walk away with some new perspective. So let's get into our discussion with minor league baseball player Jeremy Randolph on this new take of the Career Competitor Podcast, and I hope you all enjoy. All right, well, I am excited to welcome on Jeremy Randolph to Career Competitor today. First and foremost, Jeremy, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Doing very well, and I am just eager to get into this discussion. It's different to what I normally do on this show, mainly because you are someone that is typical to a lot of our listeners, someone that is going through transition within your life at the moment. And for me, when the opportunity to have this discussion with you came up, I absolutely jumped at it. I was really excited to get connected and excited to learn more about you, but also, dare I say it, based on the many episodes that we've had on the show, who knows? Maybe I could even be of help to you with the odd little bit of advice here or there. I'm no expert, but at the same time, I've spoken to a lot of people that are extremely successful. So I'm sure there'll be one or two things that I can help you out with. But before we sort of get into all the specifics, let's say, of what you've got going on right now, talk to us a little bit about your background in the sport of baseball.
Yeah, so I started playing baseball when I was around 5. I have 2 older brothers, and I followed them around everywhere. I looked up to them like they were God's gift to the world, so doing anything they did, and they both liked baseball. So I followed them around and played it since I was 5. I was lucky enough to get to go on to college and play at a small D1 in Ohio. Got my undergrad there. Decided I wanted to pursue a master's degree. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything at Wright State that I was interested in. So I went to the University of Alabama and got my master's degree in sports business. And it was an awesome experience there, getting to play in the SEC and competing against some of the best players in college was awesome. And then I was lucky enough to get drafted by the Cardinals in the 2019 draft. And that was an amazing experience, getting to meet people from all around the world and experience all these different cultures and how they play baseball is, it's different from us. They play with a lot of energy, and it's a fun sport if you let it be fun. But I feel like that kind of gets lost here. But yeah, my baseball experience is it's unique. I'm from Ohio, but I've been all around the country playing, so it's been really interesting to see the different experiences that people have in baseball from all around the country.
Yeah, and it's funny, here you are talking to an English guy who did not grow up on baseball, but I've been fortunate enough to get to know a lot of people involved in the sport, especially through the show as well. Most recently in the last few episodes that we've actually had a number of baseball players coming on. It's forced me to learn a little bit. But in terms of just where you are now, as you mentioned there, drafted by the Cardinals in 2019. So you're obviously still pretty young, just fresh out of your master's degree. And you are someone, let's say, who falls into what I would call a very large group of athletes who, through the course of 2020, has had to really do some soul searching, look really hard at just where you're going to go next with the sport that you're doing, because you were drafted in which round was it of the draft?
The 26th round.
26th round, and so for those who maybe aren't as educated on baseball, there's a lot of rounds. It goes up to 30, right?
It goes up to 40. So
40.
This year, because of the pandemic, they cut it down to 5, which is crazy because there's guys that will make over $300,000-$400,000 after the 5th round, and they just didn't get drafted and won't be able to pursue their dream because they cut it so short this year. So.
Yeah, and that immediately puts us on that topic of just the drastic changes that I wouldn't necessarily had to happen, but specifically have happened in terms of these minor league sports such as baseball. And you are someone who's been on the wrong side of that, so to speak. You are now in this sort of waiting room within your career, just wondering what the heck's going to happen next. And obviously, with that comes so many different questions about your future, about when's the right time to make decisions and whatnot. So just talk us through, first and foremost, what 2020 has been like for you.
That's a loaded question. I think it's been pretty crazy for everyone. But for me specifically, I was at spring training this year. I was there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, just doing the normal things. Everyone had heard about the pandemic across the ocean and stuff. And we're like, it's across the oceans. It's not really a big deal to us yet. And then, me and my roommate for spring training, we were watching basketball in the hotel, and it's I think it was the Jazz and the Thunder, I believe. Yeah. And all the games been canceled. We're like, oh, this is serious. They're canceling NBA games. And then sure enough, the next day, we go do our practice and stuff, and we get done and we see the entire front office outside of the training facility, and we're like, all right, this is not good. And they're like, all right, we're gonna 2 days, we're gonna give you guys off, just trying to sort our thoughts and make sure we're making good decisions. And then I think 12 hours later, hey, you got a plane ticket home. It's 4 p.m. You're leaving at 7. We're like, oh, okay, this is serious. Like they're sending everyone home. It wasn't just like a few guys. It was big leaguers. Everyone was going home. So I go back to Nashville, and it's like chaos. Like everything's shut down. You don't really have a place to train. So I was going to like a park and just like throwing against a fence, just trying like, because we really had, no one knew how long it was going to be until this was all over, and it's still not over. So like it's still a waiting game for us, and you're just like, it could be 2 weeks, it could be next year that I have to be ready. So it's pretty hard to kind of keep yourself in shape to be ready for a moment's notice of playing. So that was pretty difficult. But also outside of baseball, it's just like anyone else. Like you're stuck in your house and you can't do anything, and you're just kind of playing the waiting game. And I couldn't, like, you can't find a job like during that time. So that was rough. And they're paying you as little as possible, which is the norm for minor league baseball, is pay you as little as they can to get you by during the season. And then if you're not one of those guys that gets paid a lot of money during the draft, you got to scramble. Yeah. And I was fine with that. You know, I understand why some of those guys don't get huge signing bonuses. That makes sense to me. But, you know, at the same time, like, some of those guys have kids, they have families they have to provide for. And realistically, there's no way that someone could get drafted super late and play minor league baseball without having ridiculous support from their family or their significant other. There's just no way.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part about all of this, is that you're one of hundreds, right? You know, in terms of the world of baseball specifically, and this carries over to so many different sports, and it also affects college sports. You know, I think there's a lot of collegiate athletes who find themselves maybe on the fringe of a starting lineup, or someone who would be considered to be given the opportunities to be more involved in competition than others, who are just wondering, you know, is it worth another season? Maybe you're a rising senior and you're not sure. Is it worth my time trying to stay in shape for a season that may or may not happen? You know, it's tough for so many athletes out there right now. And in your specific situation, as you alluded to, it's not just you that's potentially being impacted by your decisions. You're engaged. You're supposed to be getting married in October. Is that right?
That's right, October 4th. So it's sneaking up on us.
Yes, it is. And in terms of just how you've had to navigate the last few months with training and obviously looking into the potential of next season in 2021, how has your fiance played a role in that, in terms of allowing you to really pursue the training and everything that you've been pursuing to the level that you've wanted to?
Yeah, she's been awesome. She's also like a songwriter, so we're kind of in similar professions, kind of where like you.
That's why you're in Nashville.
Yeah, exactly. So we moved down here about a year ago, and she's doing that. But she's been giving me so much grace, and she's like, hey, like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I don't want you to look back and regret it. Like, if this is what you think you need to do, then do it. Don't hesitate or think about, you know, what you're missing out. Just, if this is what you want you to do, then do it. Like, this is something that you only get one chance at. So if you don't do it now and you look back 10, 20 years from now and you regret it, then you're going to be mad at yourself, and I'm going to be mad at you, because, you know, so she's been incredible. It's the reason I'm marrying her. She's the best. She's so supportive and giving and caring. And it means a lot to me that it's like that, because, you know, I feel like that's not the norm for people to be so selfless nowadays. Everyone wants instant gratification and stuff. Sure. And, you know, I'm sure she wants a nice big house and to start a family and stuff, as do I. But it's really nice knowing that she genuinely means it when she wants me to follow my dream. And although there are some things that we can't do right now because of that, she understands that, and we're in it for the long haul. We've been together 8 years, so we kind of explained beforehand that this might be our life for a little bit. So she's on board, and she's as supportive as I could hope.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment, and I love hearing that, man, honestly. And so for everything that you've been dealing with, to have that sort of support system, and what I love more than anything as well is you got these two people that are getting married that are both pursuing their absolute passions in life. And that's what we're about on this show, man. Like, we are all about having that energy, having that desire to pursue your passion in life. And I think a lot of the time that gets lost in some of our episodes. You hear people being successful. Sometimes you assume that it's just they found a career, something that they're good at, and they've been successful. But in some way, shape, or form, they are chasing a passion. And I love hearing that, there's two people there getting married that are equally supportive of one another. At the end of the day, you got to make money, right? You got to earn a paycheck. And a lot of the conversation that we've had going on through emails and things like that prior to this interview has been geared around you having this dilemma, let's call it, having to make a decision at some point in the future where, when does pursuing a dream become almost an irresponsible thing? When does it become something that you simply cannot keep up from a living standpoint? And you attested to it. Minor league baseball is giving you just about the bare minimum of what you need to survive. And having been an Olympic athlete myself back in the day, I know what that feels like. You really do count your pennies every single day and make sure you're spending exactly what you're supposed to be spending, and that is not a fun situation to be in for anyone. So as you start to look ahead now towards 2021, what sort of conversations are you having around you within your life, maybe in relation to some other professional baseball players at the moment? And I'm sure you guys are all talking as a community, like when do we keep going and when do we maybe have to stop? What are those discussions looking like for you so far?
Yeah, I've talked to just about anyone that'll listen about kind of what they think. So I've talked to former coaches, teammates, parents, family, friends, just kind of anyone that I thought would give me some good advice. And it's been a mixed bag. People have kind of been like, hey, like it'll be there when you need it. So God always provides. And so I've been really thinking about that. So it's been really hard because, as a husband, like you want to provide, you want to make sure that your wife's taken care of and that you have a roof over your head and you have everything that you need. So that's been really tough because right now baseball isn't that. And that was a big reason that I decided to get my master's degree and go to Alabama, was to be prepared for life after baseball. I feel like a lot of athletes kind of get stuck in that. They think they're going to be an athlete forever. And that's just not the case, no matter if you play professionally for a long time or not. Like eventually your athletic career will end. So I don't want to be one of those people that, get stuck and do a job that they really don't like or have to go back to school because they aren't qualified for it yet. So that was a big reason I went there. And so I wanted to be as ready as possible to move on when I needed to. I didn't want to be stuck in a place where I wasn't ready, if that makes sense. So I wanted to...
It makes total sense. And just sorry to interrupt you, but that's a really important phrasing that I just heard there, is that you said, be ready when you need to be. And I think a lot of the time that's a really important way of thinking, because I think a lot of people want to be ready when they want to be. And, sadly life doesn't work that way, as you're finding out right now. So I think that's important. That's important to acknowledge that you because of your pursuit of your master's degree, you were able to be prepared when you need to be. And I think that's a really important message for anyone listening is, you can't be in complete control of this process. There is going to be a point where maybe the control is lost. So I love that, but sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that. Yeah, it'd be great if, I was a big leaguer making all this money and didn't have to work for an education or think about that at all. But for the majority, 99% of people out there, that's just not the case. Like even if you make the big leagues or the NBA or whatever sport you participate in or go to the Olympics, like that's a short lifespan of your whole life, and you're gonna have to do something after that. And so that's something I really took seriously. I kind of saw some former teammates that just weren't ready to move on. They were just holding on for dear life to something that was very fleeting and wasn't going to end well. And so I saw that and it was kind of like, I really don't want that to be me.
Sure.
And so I kind of took that seriously and was really consistent in researching what master's degree I wanted. So did all the research. I was like, hey, what program will actually benefit me in the future? Not some course that looks good on a piece of paper, but something that's going to be applicable to my real life. So I did that.
That's great. That's awesome. And again, sticking with that sentiment of chasing your passion, even if baseball at some point is no longer on the table, that degree, that master's degree that you've gotten is still going to give you that opportunity to remain in the sports world. And there's not many better places to be than where you are, man, in Nashville, in terms of just the opportunities to work with different franchises that are around that area. But at the same time, just keeping with baseball, and again, trying to remain respectful to the fact that you are still training and that Major League Baseball is still something you want to be a part of. What sort of role have you felt the Major League Baseball has played for people like yourself within the minor leagues over the last 3 or 4 months? Because baseball, in the media at least, has probably been the worst received of all the major sports in terms of how they've handled the pandemic. From your perspective of someone that's going through it at the lower level, how do you feel that you've been represented throughout this time?
Well, I feel like they kind of had it already set in a course to where they're going to cut minor leaguers after the season, regardless of the pandemic. You know, there have been talks about cutting 40-ish minor league teams before the pandemic had ever happened. So I kind of think you see where they had us anyways. But as a person who has a business degree, I understand that, which is really hard because, you know, it is a business for them at the end of the day. But for minor leaguers, it's so tough. It's so tough. It's not a lifestyle that's sustainable. You kind of either need to make it in a few years or get out. I don't think, like, career minor leaguers, hats off to them, but it's not a lifestyle that I would wish upon me or any of my friends. But I feel like the MLB, you know, it's an investment for them. You know, I got paid a small signing bonus, but there's also guys that made, you know, millions of dollars. So, like business, who are you going to put more work into and more resources in? You're going to put the guy that you put millions of dollars into. And I get that, and it makes sense to me. But at the same time, it's like, how many guys made as little money as I did in the draft that end up outperforming and being big leaguers? And I mean, Mike Piazza was like 60th rounder back in the day, and he's a Hall of Famer. Like, how many people are there going to be in the future like that that we will never hear about, never get to see them play in the big leagues and have those moments with them that we will never get to have because they decided to cut 40 teams. They decided to pay people so little that they just can't afford to live like that. I feel like we're missing out on a bunch of talent that'll make the game better because of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the tricky part about it too is when you hear the salaries that these top guys within the majors are receiving at the expense of such a thing. You know, there's some people that are receiving enough money as an individual that could probably pay a couple of minor league teams combined. And I think that's where this whole thing gets really tricky. And I think something that you mentioned there that really hit home for me is the sustainability of all this. It sounds to me like there's a situation that's been created to benefit the greater good of Major League Baseball at the expense of guys like yourself who, and you said this right at the beginning, you know, baseball's supposed to be fun. And the fun is slowly going to come away when you feel like you're just a byproduct of this machine. And I think you're going to slowly start feeling like you're on a conveyor belt, and it is a business. And that if you get seen on that conveyor belt at the right time, then maybe you'll get taken up and snapped up, and that's great. But there's so many of you going on that conveyor belt that it almost feels and sounds like to me that there is this machine component to it that is trying to benefit only the greater good of Major League Baseball. And that's hard to hear, because as someone who is a purist for sport involvement as I am, and hearing you talk about your passion and love for the sport and how you believe it needs to remain fun at all times, you know, as someone who's only known you for 20 minutes, you know, hearing you talk about it, it doesn't sound fun, and that's hard to hear, man. That's really hard to hear, and I can imagine there's so many people like yourself throughout minor league baseball, but also just these major sports right now that are still trying to hang on and fight, that feel as though the fun in what they're doing is slowly starting to disappear. Have you started to feel that way?
A little, but not so much for that. I feel like just not the money. I went in understanding that I was gonna make a little like very little money.
Sure.
So that part hasn't taken away the fun. It's been the politics of, this guy got drafted super high, so we're gonna let him fail a bunch. But myself and other guys that got drafted super late, it's like you have two chances and then you're done.
Right.
So that part's been kind of like disheartening. Like, hey, like you have so little chances that if you mess up, like you're out.
Right.
And I get it. It's like I talked about before, the investment. At the same time, it's like, if you're better than this guy, why am I sitting behind him?
Right.
So that's been hard to swallow. But as far as having fun, like as long as I'm playing baseball, like once I'm on the field, it's awesome. Like it's an indescribable feeling, like getting to compete against people and just like seeing where you stack up. Like I love competition, like board games, anything. Just I love winners and losers. Like you either win or you lose. I don't like ties or anything like that, or playing for just to play. Like I really enjoy just competition. And as far as having fun, I feel like we need more personality and more people kind of being who they really are instead of the scripted version that some organizations want them to be, where they don't have a personality or don't show any flair or anything like that. I feel like it's something that's hurting the game, and I feel like a lot of young fans are turning away from it because of that.
That's certainly an interesting point there at the end in terms of just the personalities that the league is trying to create. And in my 15 years in the US, I kind of agree with you. If you said describe a baseball player to me, there is this sort of blueprint of what you would describe, and I've never thought of it that way. That influence is coming from a higher power. That these individuals aren't necessarily what they're being portrayed to be. That makes a lot of sense. But in terms of looking forwards now, listening to you talk about the competitor that you are, being a competitor is something that obviously first and foremost we're all about on this show. But secondly, I have yet in my life met someone who is more competitive than myself. And so for me, when I get to talk to someone who's competitive, I'm always excited. What for you is a realistic version of competition and within the sport of baseball now moving forwards? How long are you going to continue to put yourself up against other guys and say, hey, I'm still competitive. Hey, I'm still as good as you are. When do you think that you're going to eventually need to pull the plug and say, you know what, even though I'm all of these things, no one wants to acknowledge it. It's time to move on. Have you thought about that?
Definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, you are counting on someone else to see your value, and that's tough. But for me, it's not so much comparing myself to others. It's competing against myself, like how good can I be for the time being. Right now there's no scouts out. They're not coming to the facility to watch me throw into a net. So it's really just on me, how consistent and determined and motivated can I be to where, I'm doing what I have to do. I'm doing my lifting, doing my throwing, make sure I'm getting all the work that I need to do every day. But at the same time, it's like, is it worth it? If I get signed again, I'm going right back to making that very little money when realistically I could get a job that's making significantly more money.
Yeah, but let's stay with that thought. So is there a job? Is there maybe a career or two that you can think of that's going to light that same sort of fire within you that the sport of baseball does?
Yeah, I had talked to several of my coaches, and they all really want me to coach, and I don't know about that yet. They're like, you'd be really good at it, and blah blah blah. But at the same time, I feel like coaching is similar to where you have to pay your dues early, where you're volunteering and stuff. And I don't know if that's a path I want to take just yet. But I'd also really considered working in an athletic department and kind of helping people get ready for the future. I feel like that would be a huge help to them as well as myself, to where I'm having a positive impact on a bunch of people. And I feel like my career is worthwhile and not just a paycheck. I don't fault people that do that. It is a means to an end. It is just work. At the same time, I feel like if you don't really enjoy what you're doing, then 8, 9, 10 hours of your day is just miserable, and there's no reason to do that when you can find something that you really enjoy and can still make a good living from it.
Yeah. It's again a message that we share almost every single episode is optimizing yourself. It's difficult to do that if you're, like you said, spending 8 or 9 hours a day doing something that you disagree with or you're not comfortable doing, or flat out makes you miserable. I understand that. And in terms of just listening to you talk, Jeremy, the one thing that's apparent is that, you mentioned that you're a competitor and you mentioned that you follow your passions. I personally think listening to you talk, you're gonna find a way to be successful wherever you go, and that's something that should empower you. That's something that should give you a lot of confidence at this point in this juncture that you're in, because I think a lot of the time not having that underlying knowledge of, hey, I'm going to be fine whichever direction I go, that can sometimes lead you down the wrong path and put you in a situation similar to some of those counterparts you have within baseball that aren't letting go of the sport and keep hanging on and keep hanging on. I think I want to just, more than anything, having listened to you talk for 30 minutes, is give you that support and acknowledgement that when the time comes, I think you're smart enough to know when it's going to be the right time. And as much as that's probably going to be difficult in the short term, I think in the long term it's going to pay off in droves, because everyone can live for a couple of years on a little. I think in the long term, as long as you're patient enough, the right opportunity is going to come. And I'm just excited to see where this goes for you. And in the meantime, in terms of work experience or anything like that, have you started to connect with anybody? Any opportunities coming your way by any chance?
Yeah, so I've talked to Vanderbilt's director of ops for baseball and kind of just picked his brains. Like, it's something I really might enjoy doing, is kind of helping run the business side of a baseball program. So I've been able to talk to him, and he's been super helpful. Just kind of letting me, like, he has no reason to, I don't know him personally, just the sounding board for me. And that's kind of what I want to do in the future when I get in a position like that, is allow people like myself to kind of just learn and develop from that. And it's been invaluable to me, just kind of like, hey, like, how would you handle this? How would you do that? Because, I don't have any work experience right now because of baseball, and that's been kind of a hindrance to me finding a job. But yeah, just being able to connect with people and being able to talk and learn, really, that's all I can do right now is learn what I don't know. And I feel like that's kind of the best way to go about it, is find the people that are doing the job that you eventually want and just picking their brain.
That's fantastic. And it all comes back to self-development. I love that you're investing so much time in yourself away from when you're not training. That's a piece of advice for anyone listening, is if you're putting all your eggs into one basket, so to speak, you're really leaving yourself in a very vulnerable situation where if failure comes, you're not going to have much of a plan B. But clearly you've got plan B, C, D all figured out, and that's awesome to hear, man. And I really appreciate you coming on. This is something that I want to be doing more often within the show. My hope is that 6 to 12 months from now, I'll get to bring you back on and we can talk and see where you're at and see how things are going. And I think that's a part of the show now, that, we're ready to make that next step in our evolution of hearing someone who's going through some hardships, trying to figure out which route to go with their career. But in the meantime, I'll be keeping tabs somehow, some way. I'd love to continue to remain in touch and hear how things are going. And like I said, bring you back on the show and we can check in with our listeners and let them know where you're at, if that sounds good.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. And my thanks again to Jeremy for joining us on the show today. And as always, I'm going to finish with my keys to success. First and foremost is my competitive call, and I'm going to go with preparation. I have such admiration for the approach Jeremy is taking given his situation currently. He doesn't know if his minor league season will happen next year, but remains disciplined in his preparations and his training. If the option to pursue the sport anymore were to be taken away from him, his preparation through his continual networking efforts will allow him opportunities somewhere within the field of his choice. I think it is always easy to prepare for something you know will be happening. The part I believe that separates ordinary from great is when someone is willing to prepare for something they want that hasn't come along or been decided for them yet. That tenacity in nature to not pay attention to the unknown and simply keep preparing just in case the opportunity comes is certainly something that will make you more competitive in the long term. And clearly, Jeremy has that in his arsenal. Next is my teachable takeaway. Who are you in communication with that has the job you want? This is a massive component that any professional out there, whether just starting out or well established, should be taking some time to think about. It is so great to hear that Jeremy has individuals like this within his network that are able to explain how he can one day set out on his career path that will eventually get him to where they themselves are one day. So I hope that you have people like this within your professional circle, and if not, it might be time to have a think about finding such connections. Finally, my motivational move. Have a fantastic plan B, plan C, and plan D for that matter. This sounds a little strange at first, I know, but stick with me for a second. Jeremy is at a point in his young adult life where he is working hard towards his first passion in life, which is baseball, while going through the dilemma of when he might need to start his career away from the game. But this is with the understanding that the career he pursues will also be in an area he considers to be a passion. This thing we call life would be super easy if we all got to pursue the thing we first fell in love with growing up. If that was me, I would be a sports broadcaster right now for the BBC back in England. But speaking personally, every time I changed my path in life, I made sure it was one I wanted to go down. I love my job as a swim coach, but can say confidently that that wasn't plan A for me growing up. Maybe you are on plan C, plan D, maybe plan E within your life or career at this time. Whichever plan you are on though, I really hope it is one you are passionate to pursue. And hey, if it isn't quite what you want, don't be afraid to start making some new plans today and start working towards them. Thanks so much for listening to my Keys to Success and joining me today for this unique episode of Career Competitor. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share the show with all your friends, and I look forward to welcoming you all back for another episode very soon. Bye for now.